Okay, what do you guys think of the new iPhone?
What?
Actually, it's cool. I haven't looked at
From what I've seen, I like it. I've only watched about 10 minutes of the little video today, so I like the full screen. I like the processor, the Face ID, a couple things like that I like. You don't have to use a Face ID.
Yeah, they got rid of Touch ID. It's Face ID only.
Really? That's stupid.
Yeah.
What happens if you get your wisdom teeth taken out and not unlock your phone? Like,
Well, better get a picture out.
By having a picture of the guy, and we need to picture the guy from the phone and it works.
Yeah.
So I think that thumbprints would be far more reliable than something that a picture can solve.
Yeah, that's true. Somebody can take a picture.
Yeah.
then your
We
phone's
still got some time. There'll be some bugs for sure. You know that.
Staring at you the whole time anyways, you're
Well,
looking at
no,
your phone.
but here's the thing too. Somebody can just take a picture of whoever's phone it is and take it off their Facebook, and if somebody stole that phone.
Well, from what I understood, and I might be wrong, the technology is, and they have it out already, Philips has this out already, where it can take your, it can tell how fast your breathing is every minute by the blood vessels in your face. And that's the type of technology the phone's going to be using. So it can't just be a picture.
That's awesome.
So that might be a problem, just using a picture. So but let's go ahead and get on task. Good discussion though. Definitely watch the keynote if you want. They did have it in the part I watched was in the new Steve Jobs Theater, which was in the picture on the quiz tonight that was up there. They just finished that up. It looked pretty nice. RBChourofcode.com is where you can register RSVP for all the events we talked about tonight in the quiz. So make sure and avail yourself to that, or tell people about it at least. That would be awesome. Appreciate it. RBChourofcode.com is the website. If you just go to mybc.org, it's right on the front page. And mybc.org is all over campus here. So you should already have that bookmarked on your browser at home or on your phone. But tonight we're going to go over vulnerability and what it's all about and assessing vulnerability on a network. The first point is systematic evaluation of asset exposure. And the exposure we're looking at, or asset exposure we're looking at, is attackers, forces of nature, and potential harmful entity of any type. The aspects of vulnerability assessment have to have these criteria: asset identification, threat evaluation, vulnerability appraisal, risk assessment, and risk mitigation. Here on campus, we have about 4 individuals that go to Colorado at our the HP campus. We take all of our data to that campus and restore it within 24 hours and have data up and running, all your student records, HR stuff, phones set up, and about a 20-seat computer lab all working. And so it's wise for businesses, what we're talking about this week, it's wise for businesses to go through some type of disaster recovery or some type of vulnerability assessment so you can know how your network is, be truthful to how your network is. A lot of times companies will hire it out because it's hard to be unbiased when it's your network because you developed it or you designed it or you worked there, including myself. And so we always hire it out to have folks come in and do it. HP is the folks that we use, but there's a number of them out there. And so this week we're talking about that. How vulnerable is your network at work, at home, and this whole chapter talks about mitigating those risks and ways that you can harden your network and tools you can use. So on the asset identification part, it's basically just a process of inventorying items with your economic value, and that was one of the questions on the quiz. Anything has a monetary value needs to be tagged. Spiceworks.com, you might make note of that, is a software I do recommend playing with at home or at work. And Spiceworks.com is a free web-based application that you install on a computer, any computer, doesn't matter, doesn't have to be a server, preferably not a server. What it will do within about a 48-hour time period is it will scan your entire network, inventory every item it can find. It has an IP address, and then you can go back in later, add PDFs to it. You can add, upload warranties, upload when you bought it, how much it was for, receipts. Do I know?
I run reports off it.
Yeah, you can run reports off of it. You can do help desk stuff off of it using VNC. And so tons of stuff you can do with that. And so I definitely recommend that. And Spiceworks.com is the website. You can download it for free, and it's been used by hundreds of thousands of IT departments, including here at Rock Valley we use it. We've been using it for a number of years. And so But when you talk about assets, one of the things you need to, anything that's economic value, number one should be people. Hopefully have economic value in your business. Hope you value your people. Physical assets, computers, servers, everything in the building itself, the parking lot, the cars on the parking lot, folks that are in and out of your building throughout the day, delivery folks, maintenance folks, physical assets, data. Data would be data, and that data could be in the cloud, that could data be on site, regardless of where it's at. Hardware and software. These are all just real common assets that you're going to tag when you're doing an inventory vulnerability assessment. Determine each relative value of each item. Find out what that value might be. You can get software to help you with that, by the way. How much revenue does that asset generate? How difficult is it to replace it? Impact of that asset if it's unavailable to your organization. And you can rank them in a number scale of 1 to 10. We've done that before. 1 being less used or less needed, 10 highly needed, highly critical. Threat evaluation is possible threats that could come against. You got, like I said a few slides back, you've got Mother Nature, you've got theft, you've got hacking, you've got failure of hardware, failure of software, patches that don't work, that crash the network, stolen data, all above you could have, and even more. So what you do is basically what's called threat modeling. Threat modeling goal is to understand how attackers attack your network or how they could attack your network. And this is where it's helpful to have folks from outside come in and assess it. You can do an internal assessment, but again, very helpful to have someone from the outside do it. And the way it's done basically is it's done by constructing different scenarios that could happen in your business. And every business is going to be different, okay? An example I always share with this slide is there's one of the big kind of, regardless of what the company is like, whether it's a networking company, whether it's a phone company, whether it's a JCPenney, Sears, doesn't matter. One of the assessments for security is, a common one is, a person comes in the building and assesses the front desk or the front entrance of the building, how easy it is to get into the building. An example would be the person would come in dressed in a 3-piece suit, say you have a meeting with CEO, need to get an email, I forgot before I left, it has a document in it, and if I don't get it, I'm going to be in big trouble. Can I get in your computer and get it? They say it just like that, no breath, immediate, and the person's like, I'm okay. So they have a choice to make. Do they let this person use their computer? Or they don't let their person use a computer and maybe be fearful of getting fired. That's a common fear. And when last time that this was done from a company that we work with, 75% of the companies that had this test done failed. 75%. Why is that, do you think? Why is it people are so trusting?
I think it's because they're not trained how to respond in that situation.
Yeah, that's very true. Anything else you can think of? Yeah.
They don't know the risks.
They don't know the risk, exactly. They don't understand the risks.
That's why they should get their boss or something ahead of time before they show up.
And that goes with training too, probably.
Because remember,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to explain it to everybody what the risks are, and some people are never going to understand what the risks are.
Yeah.
But if you train somebody, if this happens, do this. Most people can do that.
Yeah, little scenarios people can understand, even if they're not
It's really
technical.
common sense.
Yeah.
No, most people are good at following policies. The
Yeah.
policy's there.
Right.
And then you can't get fired, and that's one of our policies.
Sure.
Nobody can sit down with logged in as you, nobody.
Right.
You will be fired.
Yeah. And then
Both of you.
what's sad to say is a lot of companies have these policies you guys are mentioning, which are great discussion, great thoughts, great ideas, but they're never trained in those policies. They're never enforced those policies. They're in a book somewhere or in a dialogue or in a catalog somewhere when they got hired, but nobody ever told them to read it. Nobody ever said you have to sign this. You have to, do you understand what you just read? They just sign it and don't read anything and
they don't read
go
the
on to
fine
work.
print.
Right. And so training is good, or threat modeling is good, because again, the goal is to understand what different scenarios can happen. And attack tree is one of the ones we'll look at that we've used in the past, which is basically a visual representation of different attacks that could occur on your network. And it's basically an inverted tree that we'll look at in a second. But here's some common threat agents that could hit any business, doesn't matter what it is. Natural disaster, fire, flood, earthquake, destroying data. Compromise of intellectual data. Software is pirated, copyrighted, infringed. Espionage, spy steals production schedule. Extortion, mail clerk is blackmailed and intercepting letters. Hardware failure or errors. Firewall blocks all network traffic. Human error, employee drops a laptop in a computer in a parking lot. Sabotage or vandalism, attacker implants a worm that erases files. Software attacks, virus, worm, or denial of service compromises hardware or software. Software failure or errors. Bug prevents program from properly loading. Technical obsolescence, program does not function under new version of operating system. And theft, desktop is stolen from unlocked room. And utility interruption, electrical power is cut off. For years I was in security, and one of the things we had in security I worked for was keyhole cameras all over buildings where we could watch employees as they left, entered the building, guests as they left, entered the building. You'd be surprised how many grandmas stole, grandpas stole, little kids that you wouldn't think would steal, people that were in a three-piece suit that walk out with a laptop or a desktop. And we would videotape all of this, and the company would prosecute. A lot of the companies I worked for would basically, if the person fessed up to it when they were confronted the next morning or that afternoon, whatever it was they were called in the office, they were reprimanded, written up, property was taken back, went through some type of training, some type of counseling, and then they were, that was their last check basically against it before they were fired. Now, if they lied or said they didn't do it, just blatantly didn't do it, the cops were outside the door ready to arrest them immediately. And then fullest extent of the law was brought against that person. And so that was our suggestion, which most companies took, because if it's a person's first offense, which a lot of times it was, they never did it again. Okay? For whatever reason, they moment lapse of morality or whatever it might be, and basically gave them a break. They were a good employee beyond that, no other marks, learn their lesson, go on, get help, and never discuss it again. And so, and I would tell you that by 80-90% of the people that stole, it was their very first offense. They'd never done it before, in this business anyway. And as far as when I was there, never did it again. If they told the truth that they did it and they were caught, then they learned their lesson, if that makes sense. Only about 5% blatantly denied it, which surprised me. I thought more people would deny it, but it's their first time. Usually they don't. Because most likely they know you've got proof of some type, or you wouldn't be called in the office in the first place. So here's an inverted tree, kind of stealing a car stereo. Okay, you have level 1 through 4 there on the right. You got the car stereo, which is the fruit that's wanting to be taken, or the value asset here that we're talking about this week. And notice the different ways you can get to it. Let's start at level 4, okay? Bribe the attendant, blackmail the attendant, threaten the attendant. Level 3, make a copy, grab a purse. Level 2, carjack, steal the key, break glass, irregardless of what level a thief wants to get that car stereo. They can try any of these levels and other levels as well, and other scenarios as well. So you get the picture. And I always tell students, if a person wants something bad enough and they're willing to wait and investigate for as long as it takes, more than likely, eventually, they will get whatever it is that they're wanting. Now, will they get caught? They could, but that's not their goal. Their goal is to get whatever it is that their target is. Okay, and we've seen that in the news, we've seen that in media, and so your network, though, you can make it as safe as possible, and train your company and your employees as best as possible. But at the end of the day, nothing's 100%. Nothing's 100% safe in life at all. And I'd like to say it is, but it's not. But we can make it as secure as possible and educate people as best as possible, definitely. So here's how to break into like a grading system. Students accessing a grading system. Level 3, look under mouse password, for password, watch over shoulder, exploit software, hole in the grading software. So let's say they look under the mouse, they get the password. If they exploit software, they defeat the security of the software, which might be logging in. They use an unintended computer that the teacher left logged in, and the student just walks up and changes the grades. Or they're Ferris Bueller and does it from home and hacks into the system. Vulnerability is appraisal, continuing on. Determine what current weaknesses you have. Your network has every network has weaknesses, every one of them. Every one of them. There's no network is 100% on every level of that network. Every network has a weakness. And the reason that's true is people work and develop that network and set up that network. And there's going to be a weakness of some chain weakness, whether it be a rule, whether it be a procedure, whether it be not trained, or whether it be placement of our hardware, placement of software, updates not done, whatever it might be. Determine the weakness, make a snapshot of that weakness, exactly where it's at. Every asset should be viewed in the light of that threat, catalog them, and then in the risk assessment, determine, this is real important, determine damage resulting from the attack if it was to occur, and assess likelihood that vulnerability is a risk to the organization. So it could be credit cards, it could be Experian, which was recently hacked with millions and millions of SSNs, which is could be everybody in here possibly could have had their SSNs taken. Touted not too long ago how secure their network was. That's also a mistake to do. No company should ever tout publicly how secure their network is, because that's a prime target response for any hacker, is to say, okay, great, you think it is? Okay, guys, gals, you know our target for the next 6 months, and you just keep at it until they get it. Again, years ago when I first started networking, the #1 password for network admins was God. Do network admins and IT people have a God complex? Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. Okay, because if you think about it, we are securing data that can destroy people if it's stolen. And while it's safe, it does give you a good feeling of, hey, I'm pretty good here, I'm pretty great, I'm pretty wonderful. But you start touting that, you start letting people know that, you're just opening yourself up for multiple types of failures, not just in hacking, but in just social type of attacks as well. All right, and so we've seen it in the media, we've seen it in the news, and so again, I believe you should harden your network, train your employees, but never tout how great and how wonderful and how secure your network is. It's never a good thing publicly to do that. Even to your employees, it's never a good thing, because there's always going to be somebody that gets disgruntled, and if they hear that all the time, that's going to be the first thing that they're going to want to prove you wrong and bring down the network, or whatever the case may be. And so, risk assessment, as far as vulnerability scale, you got a couple scales here, 5 of them actually. Things that could impact your network could be no impact, meaning it's not going to affect the organization at all, like a theft of a mouse. If your business is going to shut down if somebody steals a mouse, you might as well close up shop. Okay? Hang it up, walk out the door, right? If your business is going to close up shop. Every business is going to have some theft. It doesn't matter what the business is. Paper clips, staplers, paper, whatever. There's going to be some amount of some theft. That's why we get insurance for. That's why we get liability insurance for. Small impact would be vulnerabilities that would be an inconvenience. Like you can't log into the network for the first 5 minutes of the day. Okay, that's a small inconvenience. It's not like everybody go home, for a week or a month while the 5-minute delay happens. Significant vulnerability that results in loss of employee productivity due to downtime, causes a capital outlay and alleviate can be considerable and significant. Malware could be a purpose of this one, or the threat agent here. Major vulnerabilities that have vulnerable or considerable negative impact, and that could be through a back door, development data stolen through a back door of the company's network, or physical back door. Catastrophic, we've seen it recently in the last couple weeks. Tornadoes, floods, earthquakes that literally destroy companies, businesses, and there's no mercy, basically. And there's really, and that could happen. And we actually prepare at the college every year for any of these events and much more, like 50 other events that could happen on campus. Some of the events we can't even talk about because it's so egregious type of events, but we prepare for those events just in case something would happen.
So you're ready for the zombie?
You ready?
conflict.
Yeah, you know what the old saying is, you hope for the best, plan for the worst type thing, and it's just reality of life. And as much as I don't want to dwell upon it, and I try not to, you do have to recognize it, I guess, especially if you are an IT manager, a CIO, a CEO. When you're over a group of people, you have to think of, you know, those people's livelihood and their person and their families and their kids and their grandkids and their house and their dog and their car. It's all important stuff to people, right? Eating next week, you know, it'd be things on people's mind that are in charge and write and sign the checks. And so that's at least what I think anyway. And so if you have that mentality, you can do a lot of stuff. You can really help people a lot and secure people's network and data fairly well by getting help what you need help with. Now, one of the big single loss expectancy, this would be like, again, if something catastrophic was to happen, or even anything on that list on the prior slide, what is the monetary loss if that risk was to occur? Like a server went down, your main server that you have in your location, whatever that location might be, what monetary loss would be incurred if it went down for a day, for 24 hours, then 48 hours, and a week or a month, okay? And you might be thinking, well, that's why you do, emergency assessment, like you guys do, emergency going out to Colorado. Yeah, but if you don't do those type of monetary, we still do the monetary loss thing. If we were down for 30 days, what would happen, or a week, or a day, or whatever? Even though we plan on, on all these catastrophic events of being up within 48 hours, regardless of what the event is, it's still, you have to calculate all these things. And by the way, if you've ever dealt with insurance folks or insurance adjusters, that's all they do, basically, is risk assessment all day long. So calculated by multiplying the asset value by exposure factor. The exposure factor is a percentage of asset value likely to be destroyed by a particular risk. Like your data, your personal data at work is what? What is your personal data at work, you think? Or even here on campus? What is your personal data?
My social security number, you guys probably have somewhere.
Yep.
Good. What else? What else do people have that have where you work or at school? Social security number. What else you got?
Driver's license number.
Driver's license. What else? Financial information, right? Your address, right? Your phone number, your email.
Classified information if
All
you're
that
allowed to.
information that's personal to you in the wrong hands could cause damage, right? That's just one example. Then you do what's called, besides the total, the annualized loss, ALE, is expected monetary loss over 1 year period. Example I always give on this one is Walmart. I have friends of mine, relatives that work for Walmart, and they have an ALE every year of the analyzed loss expectancy for people walking with product out the door every year. And that's their ALE. They write it off. They pay insurance for it. Every store is different depending on location. And it's always not the bad areas that get the worst walking out the door, by the way. Sometimes the real nice areas.
Yeah,
The real nice. Do I know?
Where I work, Farm and Fleet off of Riverside.
Sure.
Some dude walks in, he walks out with like 5 $850 Milwaukee tool sets. He
Yeah.
just literally walks right out.
Mhm.
Him and his son both walk out. Like one guy's carrying 3 of them, the other guy's carrying 2.
Right.
And
Yeah.
this is a good area.
Very nice area. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
it's going to happen in all areas, and there's going to be an ALE, an expected loss expectancy of some type, an annual loss expectancy, that you meet with the insurance folks, like Farm and Fleet meets with the insurance folks and decide what is that ALE. Maybe we'll catch 80%, but we might lose 20% of the people that walk out with stuff. ballpark
I
in
know a guy
there.
that steals Leatherman stuff out of my department all the time, so I look out for him all the time.
You're right. It's not only external, it's internal as well. Like I said earlier, and be surprised how many grandma and grandpas I saw steal stuff. I'm like, really?
This guy, he's.
You know, I don't
this
get it.
guy's name is Justin Brown.
Oh.
Like about 5-something.
So if I see a Justin Brown, I should just keep an eye on him.
If you're in
Yeah.
front of the fleet, though, he'll target anyone.
But the problem is because there's nothing you can do about it, because even if you have a videotape of somebody doing something.
Well, I know. I
court
have
of
his
law, it's not
mugshot in my
positive
department.
proof.
I have his mugshot, and anytime I see him, I'll be like, keep an eye on him.
Yeah,
But
and
I
that's,
can't follow him.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there is a lot of internal theft as well, or internal loss that folks do internally as well. Let's go on with this. The vulnerability assessment continuing, estimating probability that vulnerability will actually occur is called risk mitigation. Risk mitigation is actually an area in IT that folks can get into just in risk mitigation. And so you're basically trying to lessen the risk of being mitigated, being sued, having downtime, having your company lose money. You're trying to mitigate that from not happening, okay? And that can happen in a number of ways. So you determine what to do with the risk, about the risk, determine how much risk can be tolerated, and then options for dealing with it. Diminish it, transfer, like outsource insurance, or accept it. Just eat it is what I call it. Just eat the risk. You eat it. Every company is going to do all three of these, by the way. Whether they plan it or not, they're going to do all three. Okay? Diminish it. Well, they might not diminish it, maybe. They might not do that one. But transfer it and accept it, definitely those two. All right? Now, diminishing, what's some ways, we already talked about ways to just diminish just the stuff we've talked about so far, like people giving out information, passwords, that. What are some ways you can diminish? Let's talk about people hacking into your personal account at work. What are some ways you can mitigate that from not happening in your workplace? A real easy way of allowing folks to know what a password is, what a strong password. How can you do that? Yeah.
Make friends.
Make friends? Yeah.
I mean,
Hardening the
they
software.
like you, I mean, they're not gonna attack you.
That's one way, definitely. Anything else? What else can you do?
Software more, and have everything on a backup just in case, like, for example, somebody hacks it. You have all your info on an external hard drive, and then you go to clear out everything before.
Yeah, most companies have the backups, but I'm actually going to back it up a little bit further. Maybe I just didn't ask correctly. What are some ways to mitigate from people, from hackers, let's say a hacker, that's the threat agent here, from a hacker hacking into your password at work? What are some ways that you can help all the employees for that to not happen?
Strong password.
Strong password, right? Have some rules set up, and yes,
Two-factor authentication.
two-factor authentications is a good example. Yeah, anything else?
Consistently changing your password.
Yeah, changing your password periodically, which, believe it or not, a lot of companies don't do today still.
RFID.
RFID, proximity to getting into doors, proximity cards.
Denying all passwords.
What is it now?
Denying all passwords.
Denying old passwords, that people complain when you do that. Now, everything we're talking about, Rich, just right now is a good point. Is any of the things you guys are just talking about right now, bringing up, convenient for people?
No.
Most of them.
Is it convenient? Seriously, when they have to go through it and do it, is it convenient? It's not, is it? But anything that's secure, anything that you do in life in general, if it's secure or if you want it to be secure, it's generally not going to be real convenient, right? Now, can they get to where they understand how to do it better and faster over time? Definitely. But, convenience will always put a ding in security. And that's what a lot of times companies will weigh convenience heavier than security, which is wrong. Definitely wrong to do, right?
Right.
It should not be that way. Now, if you train people right and have procedures right in place, it's not going to be so onerous for them to follow those procedures after a while, because it's going to be the culture that you've set. And the culture has to be set by not just IT. The culture has to be set by the CEO, the CIO, the VPs, whoever it is, whatever hierarchy you have. It can't just be IT doing it. IT cannot be the one driving it. They're the ones that are supporting it, training folks, helping people, troubleshooting, whatever it might be. But I've seen, and the reason I tell you guys this is, A lot of you might get a first IT job, maybe a management job, and you'll try to implement some things you learn here or you've learned on your own or whatever, and you'll hit a brick wall or a glass ceiling because the upper management doesn't agree with that. And what you've got to do, and you'll learn this semester hopefully, is create an argument for it, whether it be a PowerPoint, a presentation, a sit-down meeting, whatever it might be, for them to understand why it's so important and spell it out. And what this week will help you with is to understand in dollar and cents they understand. Bottom line, they understand. And so if you can spell it out that way, in my experience, you can get a lot more pull and a lot more support if you spell it out that way versus that's just the way it should be and that's the only way it should be. That's not going to work. You have to be able to have some type of people skills to integrate into that mix, right? And an argument for it.
Right.
So going on, this basically just goes over what we just talked about on the risk management, on asset management, threat identification, vulnerability appraisal, risk assessment, and finally risk mitigation, deciding what to do with it, with the risk, diminish it, transfer it, or accept it. Now, baseline reporting. This is one of the things we're going to be doing on Thursday. Microsoft has a baseline reporting tool called Microsoft Baseline Reporting, a module, and there's also a whole bunch of open source ones as well. And on Thursday, when you guys come to class, I'm going to give you some open source ones as well as a Microsoft one. And what it does basically is gives a standard for security on a network, some type of standard like making sure updates are done, making sure there's secure passwords on all machines, making sure passwords are being changed. They can tell by how old they are when they were created, things like that. So it compares present state with a baseline. So if a company's never done a baseline report, they can't ever compare anything because they don't have anything to compare it to, right? They're just thinking, okay, we're going to go along here, we're going to be fine, nothing's going to happen, and then boom, something happens, and then they have to do something like we're talking about this week. So noting, evaluating, and possibly addressing differences. Here's some application ways to do it. Minimize vulnerabilities during software development. Some challenges would be software application size and complexity, lack of security specifications like no logins are available, future attack techniques are unknown, maybe there's tons of back doors in the software you're unaware of that folks can get into, hackers get into.
How are you gonna find them?
A lot of times it's researching and using software that is highly reviewed, highly researched, and by the way, spiceworks.com is a great place to do that. You can search and say, hey guys, I'm looking for a software that does this, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Managed printers, let's say managed printers. Within minutes, you'll get kickback of thousands and thousands of IT professionals giving you information and data, right? Now it's up to you to do what's called your due diligence, to do your own research, do your own development research, to figure out what's best for your environment. And what's going to determine that a lot of times is not just what's the most secure, but how much can you afford, okay? How much can you afford in conjunction with security? Be nice if companies gave you a blank check, what they don't do, and to get anything you want. We always have our dream list, right? I always do, and I push for it all the time. Don't always get everything on it, but you push for it for sure. And so software development, basically all you need to know about that is, and I'm a developer through the day, is making sure that it's a well-known piece of software that's being used, and not really well-known as much as you can even do it in-house, but the folks that are doing it in-house are making a solid piece of software. And here's how we've done it in the past. Hired outside consultant to come look at the code, look at the code software, run tests against it, debug it, see what's going on with it. Is it strong? Is it solid? What's the security weaknesses? All that good stuff. Again, internally we can't do it because of what reason?
Bias.
We're biased, right? I created the software maybe. Okay, I'm gonna be a little biased about it. So yeah, it works great. No problems. And then we have somebody come in, look at it. Oh, there might be this, this, and this. Okay, go in and fix it. And that's another thing too I'll mention. You've got to be able to ask for help. You have to, regardless of what it is in the field you go into in life, not just IT. You got to be able to ask for help. And hopefully this semester and the next 2-3 semesters you're here on campus, you can get to know folks. And I've even had students that leave, go to Florida, California, and they get contacts of each other and keep in contact. And I had a student last semester from one of these classes here, the 130 class, went to work in IT security in Florida in a firm there, and contacted a student that was still living in Rockford, but they were friends, and he needed an assessment done on his network, okay, and some work done that he couldn't afford to pay folks to do. So he hired him to come down and do it, and he brought in some people that this person didn't know to help as well, because that's what this company did here in Rockford, and they did a great job. But that connection helped them here. So it's not always money, it's not always how much you know, it's who you know, and being able to ask for questions and ask for help for what you need, right? And if you do that, then that's going to help you in anything you go into in life. So I won't bore you with the software development process. You don't need to know that. But assessment tools, one of the things that's important about assessment tools is every IP address, we should know this already, is uniquely identified on the network. Okay, from a router, a switch, your computer, your tablet, your phone, whatever is connected to the network. So because of that, you need to also periodically do a scan to make sure there's not a whole bunch of duplicate IP addresses, duplicate MAC addresses, and there's software out there by the dozens that you can get that are really good at doing that. Port number, there's also, you know, static ports that are used for everything, every type of software. Well-known port numbers, like an example, port 21 for FTP, you know, port 25 for email SMTP, port 110 for POP. So those you want to be careful, because I have had folks in the past that's worked for me, that have decided to go through and just start blocking ports, man. What do we need this port for? I don't see it on my computer, right? And then you block a port, and then lo and behold, the whole department goes down. They can't have a piece of software use that port number. And so we keep track of every port number of all registered software that's used. We know exactly what those port numbers are, what locations of the network they're located, and can isolate them at any time. Now, one of the ways you'll learn how you can do that this semester is virtual LANs. You can do virtual LANs to be able to accomplish that, to where you can isolate departments by virtual LAN, and then you can be able to troubleshoot it by virtual LAN as well. So here's some ports that are common and popular: 20 and 21 FTP, SSH 22, Telnet 23, TFTP 69, port 80 for the internet, NetBIOS 139, HTTPS 443, and secure FTPS 989 and 990. So what is some ports? Scanners. There's a whole bunch of ones you're going to look for when you're scanning ports. One is what state the ports are at. Are they open? Are they closed? Are they blocked? Here's an example of a popular one called Radmin. Radmin is a popular port scanner that will just scan your network. You give it a range. Like in this example, it's a 192.168.0.1 through a .10, and a 192.168.0.200 through 255. You scan it, and then it gives you every open. You'll notice how it breaks apart. You can collapse and expand each computer. It'll tell you the open ports and closed ports and disabled ports. Okay, real easy to do, and we'll find out Thursday how easy it is to work. And you know, one of the things you need with these tools, by the way, is you need admin access to every computer on that system. The one that we will play with Thursday, you'll just be using your own computer. But if you're doing it on a network, you need admin access to every computer on the network. But that goes without saying. So here are some things that port scanning can help you with, as far as TCP connecting scanning. This scan attempts to connect to every available port. If it's open, the operating system completes the TCP three-way handshake, which is basically authentication, and the port scanner closes the connection, otherwise an error is returned. Comments on this: no special privileges needed to run this scan. It's slow, and scanner can be identified. And so Wireshark is an example. Wireshark, anybody can run it. You don't need admin rights, and you can scan the entire network, and you can see data that people are searching on that network without any admin rights. Okay. TCP SYN scanning. Instead of using the operating system's network functions, the port scanner generates IP packets itself and monitors for responses. The port scanner generates a send packet, and if the target port is open, that port will respond with a basically SYN, an acknowledgement that it's open. Otherwise, it'll say it's closed. TCP fin scanning sends a finish message without first sending the send packet. This is to find closed ports. Stealth scans using various techniques to avoid detection, and this is what hackers are going to use. And you'll find out in the man-in-middle attack we do this semester. There are some stealth scans you can use and tools to find out how impenetrable your network is or unimpenetrable your network is. Christmas tree port scan. This one basically, whatever protocol is in use, you can set it for and search for that unique scan, or you can set it for all to find all. So protocol analyzers. One would be the one I mentioned, Wireshark. Wireshark protocol analyzer, and it's going to scan the entire network for IP address activity, and you can break apart that activity, look at it, isolate it. Common uses for port analyzers, or another known term for that is sniffers. Common uses for port analyzers, protocol analyzers, is troubleshooting network anomalies. Okay, an example would be you get a call from a department and they're having really slow downloads from the network drives, not the internet, network drives. Okay, you fire up the port analyzer, you do a port analyzer scan of that VLAN, and you figure out 2 people in that department are sending AutoCAD files, each of them 7 gigs apiece across the network. That's going to cause a problem. Okay, that's going to cause slowness on the fastest of networks. Okay, so you call that person back, you let them know what's going on. They're like, okay, thanks for letting me know, and you move on. Now, if it's something that is needed beyond that, remedy beyond that, you can let the people know who is doing this, what's going on and what problems are happening in the department, and they can kill that and do it later. But most likely, normally, they keep doing it because more than likely it's an important file they're transferring for work purposes. Now, let me just mention, have I ever found in my experience that same scenario, but people were downloading large truck, race videos, and they're doing, the monster truck races, downloading those videos. Oh yeah, one guy got let go, and he had 27 gigs of monster truck videos on his hard drive.
Jeez.
27 gigs. That's a lot of videos, man. That's a lot of videos.
Yeah.
That's a lot of videos. And what really irritated me was, with the company at the time, the rule was whether they got fired or they quit, when they left, they got their computer with their hard drive in it. Well, all the data was wiped out, but their personal stuff they got to keep. I'm like, really? We're going to have to move? I mean, and you had to move it to a junky computer and give them a hard drive. And anyway, I was so irritated when I had to do that because 28 gigs of video. I was like, what in the world? Now, have I seen other types of video? Oh, yeah. Many gigs of other types of video. Won't talk about that, but you can let your imagination run. So common uses for port or protocol analyzer besides troubleshooting is network traffic in general. Every business is going to be different. A lot of companies will let their people search certain websites during lunch that they don't otherwise, like maybe eBay or I don't know, whatever. YouTube or whatever, or streaming sites. They don't let them search during the day, but maybe from 12 to 1 they let them do it. There are some folks who get savvy on the network or get savvy in IT and can try to bypass that. That's where these are going to help you isolate where it's coming from. Here's another one called Ether Detect. Ether Detect is another protocol analyzer. You'll notice on this one, see if I can blow it up here. This one will give you a start time, a client IP port, a server IP port, and then it'll give you how many packets are being traversed on that IP at any moment's notice. And this is where you can see spikes or peaks in network traffic and try to isolate what's going on. So what happens, the attacker can use a protocol analyzer like Wireshark to look at, okay, what's the IP ranges, what's the server IP address, and you can find that out within seconds, okay, on any network. And most networks are going to allow that to be transparent if you're on a computer within that network. Now, if you're in a guest of that network, like on the Wi-Fi, the way I recommend it, the way we do it is, our guest Wi-Fi is on DMZ port, does not connect at all to our network whatsoever. So folks on the guest Wi-Fi can scan all day long. All they're going to be able to scan is other people on that DMZ Wi-Fi. That's it. Okay? We're not going to be able to get anything internet or network related. Now, vulnerability scanners look for vulnerabilities in the network. Most maintain a database categorizing vulnerabilities that can be detected, like the one we used Thursday. Not only scans information like Wireshark, but it gives you red flags on computers saying weak passwords, out of date on 5 softwares, meaning they're a year backlogged on updates, running low on hard drive space, okay, things like that. It'll give you. You can even find them to give you reports on malware, virus anomalies, a virus updated when it's if it's been the latest update or not. So here's an example of a vulnerability assessment tool, web vulnerability scanner, and this one is Acunetics web vulnerability scanner. And the tools that we'll be using this semester is more Linux based that I'll be giving you. And Linux is really the #1 tool that I use when it comes to vulnerability assessment, because it has all the tools built in. I can run it off a USB drive on any computer and be up and running without having to log into the computer, without having to change any data on the computer, and I can access that information pretty quick. And one of the things I do for you guys, and I think it's my time to do it, is I create these distros for you, these Linux distros, to where you can use these like I use them, and that's how I show you how to use them, is how I use them. That way you can have it as your arsenal when you leave the semester of being able to know how to use these tools, have it in your possession at all times to where you can pull it out and use it and need it when you need it. So examples of vulnerability scanner capabilities: alerting admin when something new has been added to the network. That's an important one. Okay. So say you have an isolated network that only your employees are allowed to be upon, and you have an alert set up that a new IP is shown, or a new MAC address is shown, or just any new machine, doesn't matter what it is. You can just say, in general, anything new added, I want alerted. And if you map your network out right, you can tell pretty much exactly what building it's in, what floor it's located at, and even what room it's in, if you've mapped your network out right. And so if you've not mapped your network out right and you don't know where stuff's at, you're not going to be able to do that. But you'll learn this semester, plus if you take Cisco classes on VPN and also VLAN, you can learn how to segment the VLANs to where you can isolate like floor by floor, department by department, and it's really not that difficult to do, but very beneficial. You can also detect when an internal system begins to port scan other systems, maintain a log of all interactive network sessions, track all client and server application vulnerabilities, track which systems communicate with other internal systems. And so a lot of different things we can do. In fact, when you leave tonight, if you take a left and just look through the double glass door, you can see a couple monitors, and we'll do a tour at the end of the semester of the IT room there. There's 3 or 4 monitors, flat screens that they monitor all traffic going on at all times as far as for the servers, right? Servers only. We have other rooms on campus you can't see where people sit at computers and monitor computer traffic of every device on campus, including Wi-Fi devices. So cell phones, tablets, computers that are in labs are all being monitored. While the college is open, I think it's from like 6 a.m. until 10 or 11 p.m. It's monitored on site, and then we have a company that's off-site, off hours. And so, problem with assessment tools, there's no standard, and you'll find that out this semester. I'll give you tools I use, but there's tons of other tools out there that are just as good as what I use, just what I prefer, because I've used it for so long. So don't feel bad if you find a tool that's kind of like what I give you, and you're like, well, I don't want Professor Conkle to be mad at me if I use it. I don't care. If you like it and you use it, that's great. In fact, this is what I always tell students: let me know about tools when you find them, because I'll just put it in my arsenal as well, so I can use it. I'll test it out if I haven't used it already. So don't feel bad about doing that. Open vulnerability and assessment language, OVAL. This is basically a way for the IT community, security community, to publicly make software and tools available for programmers like myself to be able to go in and to develop it and redevelop it and to our liking, if that makes sense. So we have access to the code, access to where we repackage it, we can redesign it to our company. We can, if we want, we can add new modules to it or whatever. The downside, though, is what it mentioned at the top: no standards for collecting right now. There's a whole bunch of different montage of softwares out there. KBox is one. KBox is a what's called a description of every file on a network, and it tells you how many computers are affected, how many computers have those vulnerabilities, whether it be buffer overflow, whether it be Microsoft Windows updates out of date, and it gives you literally a number of computers that are affected. You click on it, it gives you a report, and they even have some tools that just do this, a report, right? And some tools, and this one will do this one, by the way, it'll not just report. If you have admin rights set up right on the network, you can literally, bless you, push updates to those computers and fix those things if needed without leaving your computer. I've already talked a little bit about this semester, honeypots, basically a computer protected by minimal security. There is a Linux distro we'll be using this semester that literally is all it's for is to set up a honeypot on a network. It's intentionally configured with vulnerabilities, contains bogus data files, literally to attract hackers, attract those outside coming in or those internally coming in as well to your network. The goal is to trick attackers into revealing their techniques. So the longer they're in the honeypot, the better. The longer they're in there, I can trace their activity. Every hacker is going to want to do certain things. And you can tell within 5 minutes what they want to do. Whether it be finding files, whether it be deleting files, whether it be installing software. Those are the three main categories. You can find within 5 minutes, once they're in the honeypot, what it is they like. Because the honeypot's going to have everything. It's going to have data. It's going to have software holes that are known that can be exploited, meaning installing software, overwriting software. It's going to have looking like access to other computers, even though it doesn't. So to compare the actual production system to determine security. And so on honeypots, a lot of times we'll set up a honeypot on a machine that's much like the majority of the machines in the business, put it on a network, a LAN, a VLAN that's totally outside of everybody else connection on the network, or even a DMZ. You can do that as well when you're playing around with it. And so anyway, when the attacker comes in, immediately they are given red flags that this computer is there, and they can find it easily, like little breadcrumbs are given to them. And you set up on a machine that's much like yours, because that way, if they do get a glimpse of a machine, even read only or something, it looks much like the honeypot machine as well. If it looks totally separate from a honeypot machine, they're going to know immediately what it is and get out quickly. So honeypot setup is a network setup with one or more honeypots. Generally in our environment here, we usually have 2 to 3 going on at any moment's notice throughout the campus. The place I work out through the day has 5 or 6 going on any moment's notice. We change them all the time, and I like to change them just to be different. That way, if they come back, it's something different, and it looks like there's movement and there's activity, and something's different. Software is different, whatever. And then vulnerability scannings. We're going to do this on Thursday. Basically, you just scan your network. It gives you back a report. Does not interfere with normal network activities. Spiceworks, by the way, has this built into it as well. And again, I can talk it up all day long, but definitely download it. You'll like it. Penetration testing. This is where basically you look at your system for weaknesses. It does rely on the tester's skill of what they're doing. Usually conducted by an independent contractor, and I've done it myself, but I've also hired people to do it. Tests usually conducted outside, security parameter. It may even disrupt network operations. A lot of times we've done on the weekends when nobody's working, but everything's running right, the network's all running great, and come in and have them do it. And end result, you get a test of everything how it is, whether it be passwords, whether it be DAT files that are not updated on servers, whether it be software not being updated, passwords weak, whatever it might be, a pure, clean, unbiased health check is really important. Okay, the black box test is where the tester has no prior knowledge of a network infrastructure. White box test is where the tester has in-depth knowledge of network being tested. And a gray box test is where some limited information has been provided to the tester. And I've done all three. Where I give a person a computer, has no knowledge whatsoever of IT or programming or network security, and say, see what you can do with this computer. See what you can find, see what you can break, is what I usually tell them. And then they come back with what information they found. And let them play with it all day, maybe 2 days, maybe all week, and then give me an assessment. And then on the last two, usually this is done in-house with IT folks, and they're usually, we're constantly doing this all the time, is looking at ways that we can break our system in order to harden the system. And it could be through software, it could be through hardware, it could be for proximity of the devices, whatever it might be. So vulnerability scanning, on this slide here, where you went over, just gives it in different columns. I do want to mention one, the cost feature of it. Low is pretty low. It says here in the book, approximately 1,500 plus staff. It can be more than that. It can definitely be more than that as far as the cost of hiring somebody to come in and do it. We spend a lot more than that, by the way. But you can get grants for it. Here on campus, we write a grant every year to get vulnerability assessment and emergency assessment of things that could happen. And the government pays for it, or our corporation grants as well that you can get money for as well. Let's see. The value detects weaknesses in hardware, prevents and reduces exposure to business. So mitigation and deferring attacks, we'll end on this one. The standard techniques for mitigating and deterring attacks is to create some type of security posture, configure controls, and those controls could be everything from switches to routers to your server operating system, your Active Directory. Hardening could be everything from updating, make sure your updates of antivirus are good all over the building, all over your network. I met with a person from McAfee, which you guys are familiar with McAfee, right? It was at a conference, and we were shooting a breeze. They had an assessment done on McAfee corporate. This was like 6 years ago. They got a 33% in one of their McAfee corporate buildings. 33% on updates on McAfee software on the McAfee company inside the McAfee building. Okay, that's pretty crazy, right? So again, it had to do with what happened was that company or that building, that part of McAfee, they had multiple buildings in that location. They just let go a whole bunch of people last year, like retired. Wouldn't let go, they got retired. A whole bunch of people retired. And a whole bunch of new people were coming in. Well, during that time, there was a lapse of general just maintenance stuff, right? And during that time, they had one of their pop-up security type of assessments, and that's when they got the 33%. So it can happen to even the best of companies, right? And so, but hey, you didn't have to be transparent about that. I thought it was pretty cool. He shared it, McAfee sharing that. And then reporting. Reporting, I love reports. I love reports that are helpful. I hate reports that are wrong. I like reports that tell me where things are at as they are, 100%, right? And reports are one of those things, if you configure them right, can be very unbiased, right? They are what they are, they're black and white. And reporting can be everything from outdated software, outdated updates, to malware, viruses, whatever the case may be. Weak passwords. And the thing we're going to play with on Thursday, software, will help us a little bit with that. So if you have any questions about anything, come up and see me. Otherwise, definitely RSVP to that Tech Expo coming up in October. I do invite everybody to go to that, by the way. You will enjoy it.